Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is doing okay today, Thursday, November 10th. I hope everyone is feeling happy, healthy, and ready to discuss health and fitness for at least a little while here this afternoon or morning, depending on what time zone you're in. So thank you again for everyone in attendance for this initial Ask Me Anything through In Fitness and in Health. A couple of quick administrative things. If you have a question that you'd like me to answer during our session at any time, if you scroll to your bottom bar, there's a Q&A button. If you select this, you'll be able to enter a question and I'll be able to see it on my screen. And then that way I can kind of answer those questions as they come in the order that they come in. So it looks like I'm getting a flurry here already. So that's great. Keep it going. Um, in addition to that, I have some questions here that were sent in by people before today's session, which is great as well. So I'd like to start there. So a little bit more about me. My name is Scott, obviously. You've been subscribed to In Fitness and in Health for some length of time, and you probably have an understanding to some degree of who I am, how I write, what sorts of topics I'm interested in, these types of things. But I'd like to give you a little more information on my background, my education, my career thus far. So I am a University of Illinois graduate. Back in 2010, I'm 35 years old, and I currently live in Chicago, Illinois, where it is getting colder by the day. Um, I have been involved in fitness in some capacity for about 20 years now. Really, it started when I didn't make the freshman year golf team at my high school. And my dad said something like, well, you can't just sit at home. You got to get out and do something. So I started on the cross country team. And really, since then, I've had a love for health, fitness, and everything running and weights and everything else that has become over the last 20 years or so. So it's been an amazing journey, and I'm excited to keep it going. As far as additional educational pieces, I've been a certified personal trainer since 2018. I work with folks from all walks of life to get to their health and their fitness goals, whether you're 70 years old, whether you're 14 years old, whether you're 30 years old. One of the great joys of my life is talking and working with people who are trying to make themselves better through fitness. It's one of the ways I believe that we have the most power to control our lives is through how we look, how we feel, and ultimately how we bring that energy back into other areas of our lives. So that's my goal. That's my mission. That's my purpose. It's why I maintain this newsletter. It's why I write. It's why I talk with people through my coaching sessions, through newsletters, through podcasts that I do. These are the types of things that really make me happy and really allow me to make a dent in the universe, as Steve Jobs once said. So I apologize if that's a little bit rambly there. So let's get started with some of your questions. So we have something from Abby. Let's see here. So Abby says there are so many vitamins, supplements, herbals on the market. How can I know? How can I navigate what the best supplements might be? Would you suggest a vitamin D vitamin, pre or probiotic? How is one to know? So supplements are an interesting topic, in my opinion. I believe that as a whole, people rely too much on supplements as replacements for meals and for the foods that we eat. Some people might think, well, if I just need to take a men's one a day or a women's one a day, I don't have to eat as many fruits and vegetables as I normally would. False. So my main argument against supplements isn't necessarily related to the supplements themselves. It's that people use supplements as a replacement for the whole foods that they should be eating. Now, me, I take a vitamin D supplement and I take a vitamin C supplement each and every day. I find that through the research I've done, through talking with my physician, those are what I can be taking right now to help supplement the foods that I'm eating, the fruits, the vegetables, the whole foods really. And so I would suggest that if you're looking at supplementation, start with your diet. Is your diet where it needs to be? Am I getting enough food? Am I getting enough fruit? Am I getting enough vegetables? These are the sorts of questions that you should be asking first before you consider supplementation. That being said, and this kind of will go with anything that I answer within the context of our discussion today, please, please, please always check with a doctor or a physician. What's going to work for you is not necessarily what's going to work for me, and vice versa. There's a lot of information out there at our fingertips. A lot of it's bad information. There's just as much bad as there is good. Perhaps there's even more bad information. So I would suggest that before you make a decision about supplements or anything of that sort, do your research and talk to your physician. Those are the two best pieces of advice I can give in order to make sure that any supplements that you do take make the most sense for you. From Kristen, thoughts on a personal trainer? Are they necessary? In a word, absolutely. Personal trainers are coaches in effect, and we have coaches for so many areas of our lives. We have business coaches, we have therapists, we have consultants. A lot of the consulting that I do, even if it's more online consulting, I coach people, I consult with them, I teach them ways to make their lives better in the context of health and fitness. What a personal trainer really does for you is it can help take some of the pressure off of getting started in a fitness regimen. One of the recurring themes I see in the questions that I receive in the conversations that I have with people is, how do I get started? What's the best program for losing weight, for gaining muscle, for maintaining longevity? These are the types of more open-ended questions that I see on a more day-to-day basis. And a personal trainer can really help you answer so many of those things. They can tell you where to start. They can give you exercises. They can give you suggestions and referrals, say, to nutritionists or longevity specialists. So if you're debating on whether you want to pay for a personal training session or not, or even say 3 or 4 sessions, you should do it. These are people with years and years of experience helping other people get to where they're trying to get from a physical standpoint. Like anything, sure, there are going to be folks that are better at it than others, but the only way you're going to figure that out is if you take the plunge and book a personal training session. So if you're on the bubble, definitely do it. We have something from Kathleen here. She says, I love your essays. Well, thank you very much, Kathleen. Her favorite was my recent 3-hour meeting piece that actually I wrote, I believe it was yesterday. She asks, are you interested in more narrative nonfiction that relates to physical and emotional health? Yes, I am. I'm a writer. I am a avid reader. I'm a voracious reader, but I love to write. And part of what makes writing compelling for me is the storytelling aspect. I think through movies, through music, you can get a really good and compelling story. But I believe what writing offers people is a way to not just get into the story, but to peek into the mind of the author. So by the stories that authors tell through their writing, you're able to get a sense of who that person is, in addition to whatever the story or the moral or the value it is that they're trying to portray. So for me, when I see fitness, and this was actually one of the reasons I started in fitness and in health as a newsletter in the first place, I saw a lack of storytelling in fitness in general. So many articles, so many pieces were top 5 exercises to build muscle, top 5 exercises to lose weight, intermittent fasting, do's and don'ts. These are all really important topics. But one of the gaps that I saw was, well, where are the stories? Where are the compelling stories that show how people have overcome their various challenges, or how they've reached goals, or how they've done things that they've liked to do through fitness? And so Kathleen, to answer your question, one of the types of stories that really it seems resonates with readers of In Fitness and in Health are when there is some sort of storytelling aspect behind whatever the advice might be. And so I believe that that makes for a much more compelling article. And ultimately, I believe it makes for a much more compelling reason to continue to read and to take in content that is related to health and fitness. We have a question here from Jim. What is the best way to find a personal trainer when you do not know where to start or look? That's a great question. The first place you can start right now, after this webinar, of course, is you can start Googling trainers in your area. I know it sounds a little bit mundane. You'll have to sift through a lot of folks that might not be what you're looking for, but it's something you can do right now. We can Google every piece of information that we can, whenever we want, and you can definitely go about it that way. My suggestion would be twofold. The first being referrals. If you have a friend or a relative or a family member who's had a successful personal trainer, start there. These are people that have already been vetted by those closest to you, so you can take their advice much more seriously. In addition to that, if you're a member of a health club or a gym or a yoga studio or anything like that, not only will they have trainers on staff, they probably, again, will be able to give you very quality referrals right away from a list of trusted people that they have. So my suggestion would be talk to those who are closest to you. And if you're a member at a health club, ask at the front desk. Everybody there will be willing to help and point you in the right direction. We have a question from Janet here. When starting a running program, do you recommend using a timing schedule, i.e. run 1 minute, walk run 1 minute, or distance? That's a great question. And I definitely recommend the timing schedule. As I mentioned earlier, I have clients that I consult with who are at a variety of levels. I have people just starting out in their fitness journey, and I have people that are well into their fitness journey. And the best way that you can start is simply by committing to doing some sort of physical activity for a set amount of time. So Janet, in your scenario here, I wouldn't necessarily say, if you're looking to start a running program, that you would say, okay, well, I'm going to run 5 miles a week, and then I'm going to run 7 miles a week, or whatever that looks like for you. I would do some sort of time. So for example, that might say, okay, I want to exercise for 30 minutes today. That might be 5 minutes of walking, followed by 1 to 2 minutes of light jogging, followed by 5 minutes of walking up until a 30-minute time period. Always start slower than you think. There's no rush, there's no hurry, but most importantly, the biggest thing that I see with people starting a fitness program for the first time is doing too much too quickly. And that can lead to an injury, which is the biggest deterrent for people maintaining their fitness in the long haul. You're going, you're feeling good, but then you pull a muscle or a tendon starts bothering you, or something happens where if only you had just started a little bit slower with a little more caution, you could have avoided this. So I always urge people to start a little bit slower than they might think or they might want to. I understand, we want to reach our goals as quickly as possible. It's human nature. And you'll get there. I promise you, you will get there. But just make sure that you start slow and you start with some sort of time as opposed to a specific mileage. She continues, do the couch to 5K, 10K, half marathon programs work? They do. They do in a sense that they will give you a viable training program based on a specific interval towards a specific goal. And what I mean by that is I've actually used 10K and half marathon training programs before. They're good in the sense that they establish a framework for you. So it can be very overwhelming to say, okay, I have a half marathon in 4 months' time. How do I start? How many miles this week? How many miles next week? How many miles today? the day after. These types of programs give you a framework. So you have your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, etc. runs planned for you. The only caution that I have with these types of programs is they are very generic. And what I mean by that is they try to appeal to the most amount of people in the widest amount of circumstances. So that being said, a certain training program might be too hard or too easy for you, depending on where you're at in your fitness journey or where you're trying to go. So I would just say, if you're looking at a couch to 5K program, or a 10K or a half marathon training program, take it with a grain of salt. Oh, Janet, I'm so sorry you tore your meniscus by jumping into a hard workout program. So again, that's the type of thing that can happen. So Janet is saying what I'm saying. Please start slow. Please take your time. Be cautious, and you'll get where you want to go. We have a question here from Zach regarding the newsletter. How did you build your newsletter in fitness and in health? What suggestions do you have for someone looking to get started? Interestingly enough, I would have the same advice for anyone who's looking to get started with a fitness program. And that advice is just get started. Zach, in the context of writing here, write for 15 minutes a day. It could be in a journal. It could be in a Word document. It could be on a platform like Medium or Substack. Just practice the art of writing for a set amount of time each day. The same way you would brew your coffee in the morning, you spend 15 minutes at the end of the day journaling before you go to bed, or something of that sort. The biggest thing you can do if you want to get involved and get started is just doing the act. I wish I had some secret sauce for you, but there really is nothing aside from simply getting started and simply doing the act that can help you decide, is this something I want to do long term, and how and what my voice starts to look like. So that would be my suggestion for you, Zach. We have a question here from Lakshmi. What's the best way to rehab from a leg injury? Okay, so leg injuries, it really depends. Let's just take a look at generic injuries, for example. So the best way to recover from an injury is rest. For example, Janet, we'll go back to Janet for a moment. She tore her meniscus by jumping into a hard workout program. Unfortunately, the only way to recover from such an injury, well, in Janet's case, was most likely surgery. Not all meniscus injuries require surgery, but a majority of them do. So you have to take the requisite time to heal whatever it is that's afflicting you. I know for me personally, I've had problems with an IT band in years past. At one point, it was so inflamed, I had problems walking up and down the stairs until the inflammation subsided. And so for me, the first 2 weeks really of rehabbing the injury was just getting back to square one, bringing the inflammation down and being able to walk and go up and down stairs without pain. Those are the hardest days, right? You're not feeling great. You want to be out running or playing basketball or soccer or whatever it is that you do, and you can't because your body's limiting you in some way. I understand it's one of the worst positions to be in, but the best thing you can do is to rest and recover. That could include regular icing sessions. That might include anti-inflammatories like ibuprofen or Aleve. For me, elevation, massage therapy, that really helps too. If I'm sitting on the couch watching TV and I have a quad cramp or a strain or some sort, just working that out while I'm doing something else. And then the second piece to recovering from such an injury would be bringing in some sort of dynamic movement to get started again. So in my example, when I felt like I could walk up and down stairs again without pain, I started walking, right? I started testing the limit of my leg, of that inflamed tendon, seeing if it could take just the activity of walking. And then once I got to that point, I started jogging a little bit. I started incorporating some dynamic stretching, which might include walking, stairs, something just to get some blood and some movement through the affected area. So kind of two phases, Lakshmi, to kind of bring your question to a close. I would suggest full rest and recovery until whatever is ailing you is recovered. And then, like Janet says, just start slowly. Go back into your activity slowly. You don't want to replicate the injury that you just had. You don't want to have another injury. So start out slow. I know it's painful. I know it's boring, but I promise you'll be back and better than ever. Let's see. I've got a question here. Oh, Janet mentioned she had to get surgery. So again, I'm hoping that Janet, that everything is going okay with your recovery, but oftentimes meniscus, ACLs, these types of things do require surgery. A question from Josh here. Should I be concerned with transitioning from the road to the treadmill during the winter? I've heard treadmills can be higher injury. So what Josh, I think, is referring to here is running. He was running on the roads. He now is going to apparently be running on the treadmill. Yes, transitioning is key. Let's just start with surfaces first. The road is obviously a little bit harder, depending if you're running on concrete, or softer if you run on trails or gravel. The treadmill has, one firmness, where the road, it varies depending on where you're running. The treadmill also is very straightforward. There's no, there's very little undulation in the road, if you will. And so, yes, there is a transitionary period, and it mostly has to do with the fact that your running form on the road is different than your running form on a treadmill. It's relatively straightforward, right? When you're running outside, you're the object that's moving, right? The earth moves under you as a function of your movement. When you're on the treadmill, you're remaining in place and the earth underneath you is moving. And so because of those two different types of movement, your running form actually is different on the road than on the treadmill. You've probably noticed this before if you've been running or walking for any length of time. And so the most common thing that I see when it comes to going from the road to the treadmill, to answer Josh's question, are hamstring injuries. Hamstring injuries result because when we're on a treadmill, we're oftentimes pulling ourselves along instead of pushing ourselves forward like we would on the road. This will bring a little bit more strain on the hamstrings themselves, as opposed to the glutes and the calves that work to propel you forward when you're outside. One of the more common injuries that people discuss with me when they go from the road to the treadmill are these types of hamstring injuries. And that is due to a difference in the form, in your running form that you have on one surface versus the other. So my best advice for you, Josh, would be to be cognizant of these form changes and work hard to make sure that when you're on a treadmill, just like as you'd be outside, that you're using your glutes, your big muscles, your prime movers, as they say, to move you forward and not pull yourself forward using smaller muscles like the hamstring. Your hamstrings will thank you, your calves will thank you, and your glutes will feel great because they're getting stronger and they're getting used just like they would be in an outside environment. I have a question here from Abby. What are your suggestions to keep your brain function healthy as you age? So this is a great question. Physical fitness and mental health are inexorably tied together. You probably notice this when you're exercising. After you finish an exercise session, mentally you feel great. You feel sharp, you feel crisp, you feel like you're ready to take yourself to wherever it is that you're going to next, where if that's work for some people, or if that's going home to deal with children. After every exercise session, we do see a mental lift. And so the biggest thing we can do to keep our brains healthy and functioning as we age is continue to exercise. It's pretty straightforward. My grandfather, for example, is 90 years old. And he maintains a very strict exercise regimen, which includes the row machine, it includes resistance training, it includes some walking, and it includes golf on the weekends. Part of the reason that he is still, well, with us today, number one, but still um, mentally sound and strong is because of his dedication to his fitness. And so as you get older, and brain function has the potential to slip, if you're staying active, if you're staying fit, you have a much better chance of staying healthy mentally in the long run. We have a question here that actually multiple people raised that I'd like to address. What are your thoughts about getting genetic testing for diseases? If there are preventative things you can do for certain diseases like Alzheimer's or cancer that have a genetic component, would you suggest having such genetic testing done? Yes, I certainly would. Health and fitness is not a cure-all for absolutely everything, as much as we'd like it to be. There are certain disorders and diseases that we just can't account for. Cancer being one of them, Alzheimer's, certain autoimmune diseases that are locked away in our genetics. These are disorders and diseases that are not necessarily offset by maintaining a good health and fitness program. So yes, I would encourage anyone who's curious about genetic testing to talk to their doctor about getting some sort of testing done, especially if members of their family have been impacted by cancer or Alzheimer's or any number of autoimmune diseases. Get the testing done. It's like getting your blood work done. You don't necessarily always want to do it. It's a bit of a pain. They have to take the vial, but the blood is such a good marker of overall health that it's absolutely worth it. So, along those same lines, getting some genetic testing done so you know what potentially might be lurking down the line and what sorts of steps you can take now to avoid such types of diseases or disorders is a fantastic idea, even if it's something that we're not sure we want to do or we're not sure we want to know. It's something that you should take advantage of. We have another writing question from Mark. How do you constantly think of topics to write about? I take most things from personal experience and extrapolate from there. I write about stories from my life. I write about stories from the lives of those closest to me. I really like to tell all different types of stories, and the best source of that type of information is the experiences that we have day to day. When it comes to getting the topic down, you sometimes have to be a little creative. You sometimes have to kind of think a little bit more abstractly. It's some stories that have good lessons, they have good morals, but they're not necessarily entertaining. Or you wish that they would tell a moral or talk through a set of values a little more than the actual story. So you may have to embellish a few things here and there. But when it comes to topics and ideas, look no further than your own life and the lives of those closest to you. There's plenty of story material, even if you think, oh, yesterday was just a boring day. I ran errands, I went to the grocery store, or I went to the gym, and here I am. But don't forget, some of the funny anecdotes that someone might have said at work, or the way that the person at the grocery store, if the person in line in front of you said something or did something that can be construed in a certain way. So oftentimes people get bogged down by thinking, oh my gosh, I have to have the perfect story, I have to have the perfect topic, the perfect idea. And oftentimes that's just not the case. People value authenticity. People value honesty. People value stories that they can relate to with your spin on it, because it helps people feel better about the way that their lives are going. I know for me personally, I am, oftentimes feeling not so good in some way, shape, or form. I may be feeling a little anxious about something or a little depressed about something else, and think to myself, man, I'm the only person that suffers from this or feels this way. But then when I read an interesting or compelling story that stems from someone's life experience, I realize that no, I'm not the only person that's suffering in this way, shape, or form. I'm not the only person that's dealt with these types of issues. I'm not alone. And so for me, those are the types of stories that give me comfort and let me, tell me in the back of my mind, just keep going, just keep pushing, and you'll be okay. Excuse me. We have a question here from Jose. Who are some of your favorite people making moves in the health and fitness industry? This is a great question. Off the top of my head, there are probably two or three folks that I can think of that I'm interested in right now, that put out quality information, that are relatable, are entertaining, are engaging, and that present health and fitness in a fun, dynamic way. The first would be Andrew Huberman. He's a neuroscientist out of Stanford. If you search Huberman Labs podcast on YouTube, you'll come straight to his page. He's got, oh my gosh, I think he has over 1 million subscribers, and he is a fantastic source of information for not just neuroscience, but routines and ways to kind of make your daily habits, kind of bring those habits, make them better for you, for your family, for those closest to you. He's someone that makes information digestible, relatable. Neuroscience is a really tough area. It's a really tough topic, and he makes that information digestible and gives us pieces of information that we can bring to our own lives to make our lives better. So definitely check out Andrew Huberman. He's really great. Another person I would say is Peter Attia. He's a longevity expert, and similar to Andrew, he has a unique way of making very complicated topics digestible for you and me. He's someone who's very active. He swims, he runs, he bikes. If I'm not mistaken, he's done maybe a couple of Ironman triathlons. The dude's a beast, I guess is what I would say about that. And so Peter Attia is another person I think who has the breadth of information. He is a PhD, so he has the knowledge, he has the education, and he's someone that also just walks the walk. He's in the trenches, he's doing these tough workouts, and he's living to tell the tales. Someone else I would suggest too is an up and coming podcaster that I was only made aware of probably 4 or 5 months ago, named Chris Williamson. He's a former nightclub host and model. uh, Not someone you might think, oh, that's a bastion of health and fitness, but his podcast has grown so much in the last 4 or 5 months that he really brings on such a vast amount of experts in evolutionary biology, in health and fitness, in relationship dynamics between men and women. He's someone who is very interested personally in health and fitness and brings on a lot of experts in fields surrounding health, fitness, biology, um, chemistry, those types of things. So I think those three folks are people that I've been listening to a lot lately, and that I would suggest you listen to as well. So let's see. From Julie, how can I work more sleep into my schedule? I know I don't get enough sleep, and I know how important it is. What are some tips and tricks to getting more sleep into my schedule? Julie, this is a great question. And it's actually something that I struggled with for a while as well. Sleep is what it's all about. It's when we recover. It's when we, have a chance to physically and mentally process what happened to us during our day. It's what helps us get stronger for our next workout, for our next session. There are too many benefits of sleep to name. My friend Rob Britt, who you might have seen on Medium, actually just wrote a very excellent book about the power of sleep. I'll include a link to his book in a follow-up, in a recap to this webinar, but he talks about sleep as almost as if there's a training or a training manual for it. Here are the steps you can take to get more sleep, and here's how you can do it. Personally, what worked for me is I started thinking of sleep as a secondary hobby. just like I would running, just like I would reading, just like I would playing video games every, so often. There are hobbies that people have. I would suggest making sleep a hobby, carving out time in your day for it. For me, I used to put sleep as a recurring calendar invite in my cell phone. 10:30 every night, the indicator would go off. It would tell me to go to bed. It was just one of the ways that I could kind of treat sleep like I would a meeting that I have, a consultation that I have, a coaching session. Oh, look, and then there's sleep. It's building it into your day, just like you would anything else. I think that if you just kind of ethereally tell yourself, well, I need more sleep, I'm just going to start sleeping more, that's not enough to facilitate a change. Making sleep part of your day, building it into the structure of your schedule should help you appreciate, the importance of sleep, and then making it a little bit more consistent for you in your day to day. So that's what works for me. Literally putting it as a calendar invite in my phone. Maybe that won't work for you, but I would suggest giving it a try. We have a question here that multiple people posed. What sorts of exercise should I get? I'm a little older. I'm 65 to 70 years old. Is 30 to 40 minutes of brisk walking each day enough exercise? So exercise, especially as we age, is incredibly important. Movement is incredibly important. As we age, we lose flexibility, we lose mobility, our joints have a tendency to stiffen. There is more inflammation when we wake up to start the day. So yes, any sort of movement that you can do each day is going to help tremendously. 34 to 40 minutes of brisk walking is a great start. It is a fantastic start. It's great for your heart. It's great for your legs. It's great for your brain. It's great for every system in your body. I would also recommend doing some sort of resistance training in addition to walking or jogging or whatever feels comfortable for you as you get older. Resistance training really can help prevent the atrophy of muscle tissue. It can keep joints lubricated. It can keep connective tissues like tendons, ligaments, the cartilage between our bones very limber, very loose. So if you're not performing some sort of resistance training, I would suggest doing so. Talk to a personal trainer, talk to anyone who you look to for advice about, well, where can I get started with resistance training? One of the easiest ways to get started is bodyweight exercises. You can be doing bodyweight squats. You can be doing walking up and down the stairs, for example, is a great way to get some resistance training into your daily routine. If you have an arm, like some of those armbands, in the basement that have just been collecting dust for a while, dust those out. Anything that you can do to move your body on a daily basis is going to help you as you get older. So looks like we have another question from Tom. Tom asks, what's the best way to make sure I get enough fruits and vegetables in my diet? That's a great question. For me, it's been smoothies. I love smoothies. I think smoothies are great. I like the consistency after a workout. A smoothie is easily digestible. It goes down easily. And I'm not someone that loves to eat vegetables, honestly. They're kind of hard, It's just not my favorite thing to do. And so what has worked for me in the past is taking several servings of fruits, vegetables, perhaps some protein powder, maybe some orange juice as a base, or coconut water, or something that gives it a little bit of taste, and put it in a blender and stir it up. I have a friend who makes his smoothies are a massive part of his daily calorie intake. He constructs them depending on what vitamins and minerals he needs, and always tries to make sure that he gets enough fruits and vegetables that way. For me, it's just a question of ease. So if you feel like you're not getting enough fruits and vegetables in your diet, Well, number one, you're probably not. So it's good, Tom, that you're acknowledging this, that you're saying I'm not getting enough fruit and vegetables in my diet. And then number two, throw everything in the blender. Throw some stuff in a smoothie. It's an easy way to get what you need, and it actually tastes pretty good too. So I would start there, Tom. We have a question here from Brett. What's the best type, excuse me, of exercise program to stay consistent in the long term? Simple, one that you can stick with. We do things because we enjoy doing things oftentimes. Exercise for so many of us is not just a way to stay healthy, but it's actually a way of life. We live it, we breathe it because we believe in what exercise does for us. But we also enjoy the activity. I like to run. I like to lift weights because I like to run and I like to lift weights. It's just something that I like to do. So if you're talking, Brett, about the best exercise program to stay consistent in the long term, do something you enjoy. If you enjoy taking walks with your husband or wife or children or whomever, take walks. If you're not a fan of running, if you think running is boring, or if it just doesn't work for you, well, don't run. Maybe walk instead, or join a spin class, or join some sort of yoga studio. There are so many ways to be fit and to stay active in today's day and age that just because it doesn't fit to someone else's narrow vision of what fitness and exercise looks like, it doesn't mean that you have to suffer through it. If you're not somebody who loves to lift weights and pick heavy things up and put them down, well, there are other ways to stay active and stay healthy than the very traditional methods of fitness that you might see on TV or wherever. So if you want to stick with it, do something you like. It's plain and simple. Another question from Abby. Pre and probiotics. What do you know about them, and should I be using them? I'll be honest, Abby, I don't know a ton about pre and probiotics. I would have to refer you to a nutritionist then in that point, or your doctor, or someone who might know a little bit more about what they do, how they work, any sort of side effects. That's not necessarily something that I know a tremendous amount about. The only thing I can say to that is just try and eat as healthily as possible. And if a probiotic, like a supplement, if that's proven to be something that can help you on top of your healthy diet, I would go from there. But again, that's something that I would discuss with someone who's a little bit more knowledgeable about that than I am. Okay. So looks like okay, Janet, we have another question from Janet. Do I have a protein powder I recommend for smoothies? Not necessarily. The protein powder I buy is Vital Proteins at Whole Foods. It's a little too expensive if you ask me, but it's a vanilla protein powder. Don't go with chocolate or strawberry or any of the flavors because they probably don't taste very good. And when you mix them in a smoothie, they probably will throw off the taste of the entire smoothie. So as far as specific protein powders, I would make sure to go with something that's either vanilla or has no taste. Those are the most easily blendable, if you will, protein powders. I like the Vital Proteins at Whole Foods. There's a lot of other ones that you can get online. There's not a shortage of these types of things for sure. I would check out Vital Proteins, and anything vanilla is going to be okay. Another question. What has been my favorite race or race location? Well, I live in Chicago, so I am very lucky in the sense that there are so many races every year. There's actually a turkey trot coming up at the end of November for Thanksgiving that I'm involved in, and I'm very excited for that. For me, my favorite race has got to be the Shamrock Shuffle. It's an 8K race in March, corresponding with St. Patrick's Day, which is 5 miles. I like it because around St. Patrick's Day, at least here in Chicago, the weather is starting to get better, maybe, depending. So it's really the first big race in Chicago that for me signifies the coming of the running season. There's like 40,000 people that do it. It's in the heart of the Chicago Loop. It's a great time. There's great energy. There's great people. Everyone's coming out of their shell after some long, brutal winter months. I don't know if anyone who's in the Midwest, upper Midwest, I mean, if you live in that area, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So that's got to be one of my favorite races. We have another question here from Kathleen. Which types of articles and topics would I like to see more of? I think, Kathleen, you might be asking about um, what sorts of articles and topics I'll continue to discuss, and I could be wrong, so please correct me if I am wrong there. Um, like I mentioned, the topics and the articles that I come up with are really based on stories from my own life. Um, so without kind of repeating myself too much, my favorite types of topics are topics and stories that are interesting to me and interesting that I think will be interesting rather to other sorts of people. And that's really where I start. And that's really where I kind of, that's my base, right? I always look for compelling stories and I try my best to tell them in a compelling way. From Jackson, when it comes to any consulting and coaching that you do you have a specific client that you like? Do you have a specific client that you won't take? Can you give us a little more information on some of that type of thing? Sure, Jackson. So, as I mentioned, I work with all different types of people. There really isn't a client I don't like, per se, to use your words. Um, it's just a matter of getting to know the person as an individual and getting to understand what their goals are, what their desires are, what they are capable of, what their limitations are. It's a dance, really, because fitness is so uh, important and so um, essential to how we live and how we move. You have to take in so many different things when you talk to clients, what their circumstances are with work, what their circumstances are with family, demands on their time, demands on their body. Obviously a construction worker is going to have different demands on his body than, say someone who works in an office. It's just the reality of the way that we live our lives. And so you get many different types of people who have many different types of needs. So it's not necessarily looking at it from, oh, I like this or I don't like that. It's about responding to everyone's unique situation and putting together a plan and a program that works best for them. Obviously, people have shared goals and similar goals. Most of the folks I work with are just, they're trying to lose a little weight or they're trying to be a little healthier, or back to our genetic testing discussion, they just recently found out they're prone to a specific disease or some sort of complication, and they want to do everything that they can to mitigate it. So, really, it's an individualized process. There is no one size fits all. There is no generic program or nutrition plan or anything of the sort that's going to work 100% for you, because everybody's different. That's part of what makes it fascinating, though, is the challenge of trying to get somebody where they need to be, considering all of the various factors that are working against them. It's very interesting. Okay, so it looks like we have 10 minutes to go here. Thank you, everyone, for questions and comments. This has been great. I've really been fascinated with the feedback that I've gotten from people over, the 3 years that I've been writing in fitness and in health. I've learned so much personally just by hearing your stories and hearing, your issues and your goals and seeing, people grow and develop as people and fitness enthusiasts over time. It's been really, really compelling. And so that's something where that's what really keeps me going within fitness and in health. I'm just fascinated by stories, and stories that people have, stories that people experience themselves are so, so compelling to me. So I would say that, if it comes to in fitness and in health and where I've been and where I start now, this has been just such a fantastic journey. I'm very humbled by where I am today versus, if you had asked me in September or of 2019 when I really first started writing full time, when I first really started writing, where I would see myself in November of 2022, I would not have guessed I'd be here doing this full time. It's been such an amazing experience. I've, just been humbled by the amount of people who have responded to my stories. Not everybody agrees with everything I say. I tend to be a little blunt at times, and I tend to sometimes take positions that are are a little bit more difficult. Um, but I think that's important. I think that sometimes it's hard for people to hear things that they need to hear, hard truths. And so sometimes I do try to take a little bit more of a forceful approach to help facilitate some change. And that's really where I think I stand out from a lot of people who are just disseminating information. And that's all well and good. I think people doing the research and discussing the research, that's such an important piece, right? It's important to understand the physics and the biology of what we're working with and how we can get better. But I don't believe that there are enough people out there telling people what they need to hear. I think there are too many people out there telling people what they think they want to hear. And so the message of in fitness and in health has always been a little bit more straightforward, a little bit more blunt, story oriented, and because that's where I really see a need in health and fitness, and thus far, it seems like folks are responding well to that, even if at some point they don't like what I have to say, or they disagree, or they write me an email about why this is incorrect or whatever. And I just have to say, like, I facilitate all of that. I encourage all of that rather. So it's not that I don't just like getting the good thoughts or the good ideas or the thanks for this. I appreciate that, but I also really enjoy constructive criticism because I am only human. I'm looking to grow as a writer, as a runner, as a careerist. I'm looking to grow myself. So um, I've been very lucky to also have some people willing to provide the types of constructive criticism that are essential for personal growth and development. So um, thank you again to everyone for bearing with me on this first Ask Me Anything. This has been such a good experience for me just putting this together, and I would encourage you, if you're interested in speaking to me further, check out my website, scottjmayer.com. It's available from In Fitness and in Health. It's available from my profile on Medium. It's there that I have some, you can sign up to be to one of my coaching sessions. I break it out by hour or a couple of hours or 5 hours if you want to, really get going with me. Um, I would encourage you to take a look at that and see if there's something that I can help you with from a coaching perspective. Um, and so I just have to say thank you. I'm very thankful, very grateful for the community that that we have within fitness and in health, and I'm seeing great support from folks like everybody on this webinar today that are encouraging me to continue with the message, pushing the message that I have. So um, I guess that's all I have for today, right? And I'll give you 5 minutes back. So this webinar, I will include a link to the recording if you want to watch me ramble for a second time. I will make sure to put that up. I'll make sure to include some follow-ups based on what we talked about today, links to Andrew Huberman, to Peter Attia, to Chris Williamson. These are really good people that you can learn a lot from. So you can look forward to that recap in your inboxes tomorrow morning. So um, I just wanted to say thank you very much. And until next time, I'm Scott with In Fitness and in Health. Thank you.